Hey, Jules Plus Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So, I didn't check in last night because I was in shock, okay, by the Oscars. I'm like a total Oscar girl. I come from Hollywood, seriously, like grandparents who, wrote for the Variety, who were in movies, my mother who was a child actress, like my aunt who worked for Warner Brothers forever, her whole career. It's a big part of my family. My sister Glynis, the numberslady.com, who's seriously a numerologist to the stars, is a big part of my family. And I did not expect that situation with Will Smith, and it brought up a ton of stuff for me, as it probably did for many people who were there. Like, it's just shocking. You think you're in a safe setting by all accounts. My gosh, they had to be so safe that they had to be like checked for COVID and everything. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I could see people in that audience were in their little child all of a sudden, wondering, is he going to freak out on me too? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it was really unfortunate at the Oscars that, Will let his, I don't even know, certainly his self control get away from him. And while some people were saying, oh, guy, he barely even smacked Chris Rock. And cheers to Chris Rock for remaining so professional. But yeah, he barely even smacked Chris Rock. Okay, my hand is quite small for a woman. He can palm a basketball so easily, Will Smith. Will Smith is 6'4" or something, and Chris Rock is like 5'2", like seriously. And when a hand that big is coming to your face so unexpectedly, I mean, the shock was unbelievable. It rocked my night. It really did. So I was kind of joking because it's my 30th anniversary. 30 years of sobriety from alcohol. Now, we know I struggle with other things. I'm still trying to master the food part. I didn't get clean on pills. I was a pill gourmet until quite a bit later. But for 30 years, despite every single thing in the whole wide world, I've been able to say no to alcohol. Now, side note, I do receive the blood of Christ, but I'm so clear that that sip of wine has been conformed into the body and blood of Christ that it's never been a temptation for me. If it became that, I would certainly choose not to do that either, because in the Catholic Church, the host in itself is a complete acceptance of the body and blood of Christ. But that was never a problem for me. And my story on my drinking, and I've shared it before, but just as a testimonial for today. And it's so sad. I should be at an AA meeting celebrating with people who need the good news, right? But no, after last night, I was on the phone with family till like 1:30 in the morning, just processing what in the world went down at our precious Academy Awards. And so I promised myself I would not pull an all-nighter. But I wanted to check in with you guys, and I'll certainly celebrate. I'm in AA meetings in the next day or two. But basically, for me, I came from a Scotch-Irish family heavy on the Scotch. Like, that's what I joke about. Because when I first started drinking at 10 years old in fourth grade, where most children would be throwing up and hungover, and who even knows, right? Alcohol poisoning. To drink an entire bottle of Cold Duck, which was a really cheap champagne. Uh, it didn't affect me at all, And the reason I was able to be a weekend warrior for alcohol, literally drinking from Friday night to Sunday, was because there was generations of alcohol in my blood already, and it just didn't affect me that way. I for a long, long time I never got sick from alcohol, and you know, when friends were passing out and giving up, I was like, where's more? And I was never into beer, which for me was like piss water. And sadly, yes, I've had piss before. That's a story for another day. But I wanted super hard alcohol, and my only objective was to get obliterated as quickly as possible. So every single weekend, I was absolutely drunk out of my mind. And then, much like my father, who was a professional alcoholic and never missed work once in 35 years, even with 11 children at home. I made sure that I was perfect all week long, with the understanding that I'd be able to drink on the weekends. And don't ask how a 13-year-old gets alcohol. Trust me, you can pimp alcohol off of anyone. But anyway, I drank hard and fast from 13 to 26. And even at 26, so in that time, after a while, I started blacking out. So I just would hardly remember what transpired until everybody was talking about me being the life of the party and how funny I was for dancing on the tables. I woke up a few times in places I wasn't sure of. I woke up like with just my shirt or bra on and no pants, and couldn't remember what happened. I'd been injured in an accident and was taking medication for my back and drank literally I don't even know how it works for Bacardi, but it was just less than a gallon of Bacardi in a very short period of time by my, like all by myself, though not luckily alone, because it absolutely poisoned me, and I had to be hospitalized for like 3 days. And there was a couple of signs like that I wasn't able to drink like I used to at the ripe old age of 23. And, it was kind of like that. And then I finally stopped drinking like around 24, and I was doing my best, to just not drink. I started getting the sugar, because alcohol is just sugar when it's processed in the body. I started getting sugar instead and putting on a tremendous amount of weight, binging my head off and trying to avoid alcohol. And I hadn't had anything to drink for some time, and I knew it was a problem for me. I absolutely knew. Every time I'd pray in the mirror to God that I swear I'm not going to drink again, of course I would find myself saying that prayer again, right? So finally, when I was 26, there was this really nice guy at church that I thought would make a fantastic husband, potentially. And I decided to go out with him and a roommate, and we started at their house. And we ended up having wine with dinner, and I was like, oh, guy, I can have wine with dinner. I didn't realize that we'd basically had a bottle each in that time that we were drinking dinner. Drinking dinner. Is that brilliant? That is straight up. Okay, so then from there, they decided they wanted to bar hop. Well, it's a super small town. You can walk everywhere. And it didn't matter that it was 11 o'clock or midnight, super walkable. I'd lived there my whole life. So we ended up going to this bar, and they ended up having some shots. And of course, I can handle alcohol. You know, this is how people certainly the industry, when we hear about them ODing, and people are like, oh my gosh, but wait, he was just in a recovery, program, and he was doing so well. Well, all of that's valid. But what tends to happen is when they go back to the alcohol, they don't start from the beginning. They go back to the amount that they were drinking when they were maxing out. And that's what happened to me. So I had shots, I had that whole thing. I was a total wreck. But fun, life at the party. And that roommate offered to walk me home. And I was living alone in like a studio apartment. And when he walked me home, he just thought the apartment was so cool. Can you look around? And he ended up raping me. I was so angry at the time because I knew that I was being raped, and I knew what was going on, but I also knew that I'd given away all of my power with the alcohol and had no ability to physically keep him off. And that was the worst part about it. Yeah, the physical pain was terrible. The aftermath, telling the police, being denied that it wasn't technically rape, the whole thing. All of that was terrible. But the worst part, personally, was the sense that I had no strength or power to take care of myself in that moment. And that was enough to sober me up. Like, honestly, I just knew, often in AA, they say work the steps or die. And I had a sense of that. I really had a sense of that. And so I got on with it. I just got on with it. And I'm not going to say it's the lesser of my, because I'm super talented. I am cross addicted. I would have to say all of my life, of course, codependency, which was my first struggle, to compulsive overeating, which I've been familiar with my whole life, to finally alcohol, and then ultimately pills. And alcohol, was the first biggest struggle of mine to get off, and the most dangerous, and the one I was most willing to work the hardest on. And so grateful for the 12 step program. I'm a 12 stepper through and through because I know that that serenity that comes with working the steps, the beauty of the community, that I don't even care where you're from. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you're successful at or not successful at. I don't care what your family situation is. All I know in that moment is that we share a common struggle and a desire to get well. And AA only says one day at a time, one day at a time, right? It only gives you a 24-hour respite. And I've been very blessed to have that 24-hour respite. So, I just kind of rejoice in that to no end. I've certainly known many people who were less successful. They're not even on the planet anymore, whether it was suicide, whether it was liver, I mean, like so many things. Many have not made it. When it says that we'll trudge the road to happy destiny, um, it can be like that, where you are just kind of trudging along, and the obsessive mindset, which I majored in, I just kind of came out of the womb like that, where I just had this obsessive mindset, and I never talked to my father about alcohol. And again, my father was such an accomplished man, and everybody has their own story, and he did AA for a while, and then he went on his own, and my brother Patrick was less successful. I have bipolar disorder, and it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It'd be fair to say that the bipolar was already in my blood, again, generationally, from both sides of the family, and it tends to even skip a generation. And my brother Patrick was not able to work it. He used alcohol to self-medicate, and that's what he had to do, to make it. And I never judge anyone for what they have to do to make it through their day. I only wish the freedom and the grace to not have to be abused through substances, which I only see from the devil. I really, really do. I know God gives us burdens. I know we all have a cross to bear, right? Much like Christ. And ideally, he also gives us the tools to bear that cross. And some of us aren't able to, and that's okay, because we come from a God of mercy and grace. And what we cannot rise up to, it's okay. I mean, we're just supposed to continue to strive, right? He doesn't want anyone sitting on the fence. And so I'm perfectly imperfect in every way. I've had the grace to get off of alcohol. I've had the grace to stop pills. And even if I have to take a pill, like from the doctor, I'm able to do that. I never have, and again, I know it's only 24 hours at a time. I can't even brag that I'm forever free from that, because I don't know what my tendency will be at any given moment. So my greatest struggle remains codependent behavior. Sometimes when I tend to give people more of myself than they deserve, or I'm more needy than I prefer to be. And so that's part of the reason I'm such a God person, because my desire is always to look to someone who can handle all of this. And that is only God. Well, to be fair, God, Jesus incarnate, which is God in human form, his loving mother Mary, all the angels and saints, for which I call on every single one. I'm telling you, the heavens are always going, let me guess. It's Juliana. Yes, Father. I use every tool I can get. Every tool I can get. So sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, you're just so happy and you got it. You know what? By grace, and certainly not by being spared anything. From incredible illnesses to severe injuries to bankruptcy to being raped. I have not been spared, but I've had so much grace that I can be compassionate, I can show up, I can be a cheerleader for the world, and I'm just so grateful. I just tell God every day, every single time, that I have the joy in my heart of the Holy Spirit and His Son, and just digging this experience called life. I'll take it all day long. So if you're a person still, struggling with whatever that is, offer it up. again and again and again and again. Accept that you fall, get back up, and accept that spiritual warfare is real and the devil is up to no good, but God is bigger, right? All right, my friends. Like if you like, join us if you haven't. Subscribe. Thank you for letting me share my story. And until we talk again, best of all, know that you're blessed.